Hello everybody, my name is Robert and this is Review. And welcome back to me week day 4. Of course, if you have missed the first 3 days where I take a look at each of these phones, what you get in the box, then you can check those out up there or down in the description below. And while you're down there, why not hit subscribe, hit that bell notification icon so you get notified every time I upload. Now let's go on with today's video where we're taking 4 of the Mi phones that I've had to this point and we're going to pit them against each other in a camera and video test. So let me introduce you to today's contenders. The Mi 10T Lite with its quad camera 64 megapixel array. The Redmi 9 with its 13 megapixel main shooter and 3 separate cameras. The Redmi Note 8T with its 48 megapixel main shooter and 2 other cameras as well. And finally the Pocco X3 with its 64 megapixel camera and 3 others. This is very similar to the 10T Lite. Okay, so we're back now and we've spent some time looking over these videos and photos, but we thought we'd spend a little bit of time just talking to the camera and having a chat about each of these videos and photos. So obviously this is the first one, this is the 10T Lite, the most expensive of them all. So I quite like how the 10T did this here, quite overly sharp, and the colours seem a little bit off. To me they seem a bit dark.
In some areas, definitely. In
some areas, in particular the jumper along the bottom here, we're seeing quite a lot of darkness that wasn't actually there before. This one's the Redmi 9, the cheapest device, and you can certainly tell that it's the cheapest device.
In places it looks quite bright, but then in others, like where the pathway is, it looks slightly lighter.
Yeah, I mean, you can just watch as it goes. It's trying to work out its contrast level as it goes, and it's kind of it's not a good video.
Decide.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe if we spent a bit more time with it, we could get a good video out of it. But right now, this seems a little bit off to me. And I think next we've got the Redmi Note 8T, which is the more expensive Redmi, but again seems to have that same problem. I'm still seeing that colour pop, and it can't get that contrast right. But in terms of actual colour, the colour reproduction is better here than it was in the 10T Lite. This one is more true to life in terms of its colours, in particular on the grass there. And finally we've got the Pocco X3, which somehow looks even darker than the 10T Lite.
You look incredibly dark shading wise and with the background, because your jacket is a lot darker.
Yeah.
And just everything about you in general in this one is darker.
Yeah, so bear in mind that this one and the first video that we've got here are shot on the same camera array. It has the same 64 megapixel camera. It's all actually happening inside the processing of it. I much prefer the processing here of the 10T Lite. At least the colours aren't too dark and I can change it up, whereas I think we've lost a lot of the colour detail in the X3 here.
Yeah, there's a lot of colour lost.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of the photos as well. So this is the the X3, the Pocco device. I was trying to capture the birds here in particular because I wanted to check out the detail on it. So as we zoom in, there's quite a lot of detail in here. Remember, this is one of the 64 megapixel cameras. I quite like it. The colours seem fairly true to life.
Yeah, this one was the one that was more colour-wise realistic.
Yeah.
Because it's not too bright, it's not lost all the colour, but it's not dark, you can still see everything. Yeah,
and I think we've got quite a lot of detail to play with there. So this one's on the Redmi Note 8T. It's darker overall. It's captured less light and less colour. It almost seems a little washed out compared to this one here. But actually, now I look at them both side by side, I prefer the image of the 8T here.
it just looks like a nicer image in general. There's a little bit it's a little bit less blown out, especially around the sky area.
And the water.
This is just too bright for me. This seems more accurate.
The water looks a lot brighter in the other photo than in this one.
This one is the Redmi 9, the cheapest device. This one's that 13 megapixel camera, and it seems to share the qualities of both of these in a way. We've got the overly bright nature of the X3, but we've also got that slight detail of the Note 8T here. It's probably my least favourite image. It's too bright, there's just not enough detail captured, but that's because of that 13 megapixel camera. We just can't capture the same amount of detail.
No.
All of these were taken with the 2x zoom as well, so you've lost a little bit of detail in that. And this is the Mi 10T Lite. You're going to notice actually straight away that these photos are 16 by 9. They have this sort of letterboxing going on the top and the bottom. It makes it look more cinematic.
Yes.
Colour space here is a lot more cinematic. I like what this has done, but it's less true to life.
It's lightened up this water again.
It's brightened up the water, yes.
The water's a lot brighter than the others, but if you go back to the sky, it's slightly darker than the others.
Yeah, so I think this is our favourite image here.
Yeah.
We've got that 2x zoom, and we're still getting a lot of detail, in particular with the birds. But I think the choice of having this letterboxing is a little bit odd, and maybe something that you might want to look at turning off if you're using this properly. So let's have a look at this Canon. This one's on the 10T Lite. I think the first thing we noticed about it was just how dark it was.
Yes, because the trees in the right corner are very dark, and they aren't actually how it was when we were there.
Yeah, I like I like the colours, but they aren't fully true. They are quite overly saturated. In fact, Google is telling me it wants to fix the lighting there, which notes something about it, I suppose. This one is shot on the Redmi 9. I like the colour reproduction on this one.
Yeah, that one's more natural looking.
Certainly.
To when we were there. And the trees look a lot better than the first one.
But
they're not as dark.
As we zoom into the image, though, we are losing a certain amount of detail, but that's just because of its low megapixel camera. But I like the colour reproduction here. If we were just going off of colour, the Redmi 9 takes it for me. So this one is shot on the X3, and I think it's funny because we get a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's brightened the grass out.
Yep.
But it's darkened the trees again.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like the 10T Lite and the Redmi 9 had a child, and this is what the child looks like. Yes. I like the colour reproduction again. It's more pleasing than the 10T Lite. The 10T Lite to me did too much. This has done a little bit of processing, and it's enough to make the image look pleasing, but not so much that it becomes unbearable. And finally, we've got the Note 8T, which colours look better, in particular on the grass.
Yes.
But the image is still very dark. We've lost a lot of that light, particularly around the trees.
Again, that bit's gone darker again. But so is parts of the grass.
This is true.
Some of the grass is a lot darker as well.
So let's take a look at the selfies here. This was difficult because we've lost all the watermarks, so it took me a while to work out which of these were. This one is shot on the Redmi 8T, Note 8T. I quite like it. A nice amount of blurring around the outside. It's not too intrusive. I think beauty mode might be on in this one though, so if we flick to the next one, that's beauty mode off. And you can see my awful beard there. But colour reproduction, good. I like it.
It's sort of matched your jacket. It's lightened the shoulders a little bit, I think.
Yeah. And I think
otherwise, I think it's a good colour match.
Skin tone's fairly natural here. I like the skin tones here. Whereas when we get to the Redmi 9, I look like a ghost.
Pale.
Yeah, I look like I've seen a ghost.
That's not my skin colour.
Yes.
That's my skin colour, not yours.
No, so I don't like this one at all. It's just lost everything.
Your eyes look sunken in.
Yeah.
You look tired in that one.
I mean, I am tired, but that's not the point.
Because of the skin colour, you look even more tired than you do in the others.
Yeah. So here's my next question. I genuinely don't know which one is which here. I'll fix it in editing and note which one is which. But of these two, here, I prefer this last one. This last one has the most natural colours to it. That's my natural skin tone. We've got the nice blurring on the background, so I'm going to wager that one is probably the 10T Lite. Which means that this one must be the X3. Is the only one that we had left. Yeah, so this one must be the X3. Again, very similar.
It blurs the background again.
Yeah. But the colours in this one are just a little bit too bright for my liking. It's a little bit too much. This one is more natural and actually true to life. Selfie. The back-facing camera taking some portraits now. Oh, okay. So, this one is shot on the, let's have a look at the bottom there, 10T Lite. So, characteristically, the 10T Lite, to me, seems to darken every image to an extreme.
Yes.
And that might be something that you like in a photo, it might not be. It's really subjective. I quite like it, but it's not true to life, and I've lost a lot of the detail there. If I went to edit this in something like Photoshop, I can't brighten this image very easily. But it is the only one that actually managed to blur the background. Yeah, I'm not sure whether this is something that maybe we did wrong when taking the photos, or if this was the only one that genuinely managed to pick me up and cut out the background.
The last one definitely struggled to pick you up.
Okay.
It couldn't find you, the last one.
But this one, really pleasing. I like how this one looks, in particular that blurred background there. So this one is, okay, we've got a couple for each one, so we'll move on.
There's two for each one, sorry.
That's alright. So this one is the Pocco X3.
This one's brightened everything up.
It's brightened everything up, but the colours are at least a little more true to life than they were on the
other
10T. Too bright though. And we've lost all of that we haven't actually got any blur in the background. It's almost like it hasn't picked me up at all. And overly sharp as well. I don't like, especially around my head here. You can see that it's overly sharp, and it's just not quite right. X3. This one's the Redmi 9. Again, I swear the Redmi 9 does this quite a lot, in that it's sort of a child of the first two.
Kind of darkens parts of it, lightens others.
Yeah. Like, it's got the darkness along the bottom here of the 10T Lite, but it's got the brightness in the jacket of the X3.
Yeah.
But I, again, didn't pick up the background.
No.
But I quite like the colours on this one. They're not true to life, but they are more appealing than what was produced by the...
other two.
Yeah, by the 10T Lite in particular. And finally, the Note 8T.
This one's darkened everything.
I was actually going to say this is the most true. Colour-wise, to me, this is the most true in the jacket.
Colour-wise with your clothing, yes. But I'm going to say with the pavement, it's darkened it slightly where your feet are.
And maybe skin tones are a little bit darker as well. But in terms of colour reproduction, this is my favourite image right now.
Yeah.
But it is, of course, as you noted, this was the only one that you noticed didn't actually pick me up as a person.
This is the one that didn't pick you up.
It might be because we were too far away from the subject.
Maybe.
But it's something that we can look at. I think we're going out again later to get some night shots as well. This is going to be a really long video, guys. So if you're enjoying it, get down there, hit that subscribe button. But you can also skip to the photos that you maybe want to see. I'll have all of the timestamps in the description. So, this is quite funny, actually. I was playing with the panorama modes, and all of them did pretty much the same thing, in that it sort of started stitching stuff really strangely in the middle. I didn't move the camera up or down, I kept it as straight as I could, and every time it would produce this weird kind of... I actually...
in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know which each of these were either. So again, we'll just have to judge these blind, and I'll put the actual phone model on the video.
Yeah.
But in terms of colour reproduction, I think it's okay. It's fine. Doesn't seem overly bright, doesn't seem overly dark. Quite natural. But yeah, I'm just not impressed by the
middle bit.
By the middle bit there. It gets better. You wait until you see the one in a second. It's incredible. This one is considerably more contrasty, especially on this side. The pavement here almost has this orange and yellow tint, which it didn't have before.
Yes.
And judging by the amount of detail that we're getting, I'm going to guess this is the Redmi 9, the cheapest model.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm looking at that church, and that is just overly sharp. It's trying to compensate for the lack of detail there. So I think that's probably the Redmi 9. This one is the one that I mean. I don't know what happened there. I honestly can't tell. And the colours, again, they're too bright. Especially that building there. That's almost blood red.
And the blue part next to it with the grass.
Yeah,
that's also way too bright. When we were there, it's way too bright.
This whole image is overly bright.
Same with the water. The water looks...
Oh man. But not... Nice amount of detail though. Yeah. I think that's its redeeming factor. It's got the detail there, but colour reproduction is certainly not its strong point.
No.
Again... Oh, this must be the same phone. Yes, I'm going to suspect that's the same phone, because I'm getting the same characteristics in the corner here.
But again, it did a different bit in the middle this time.
Yeah, so this was obviously my second attempt that worked a little bit better. I say a little bit because it didn't sort of flip it 180. So this last one is on the Note 8T, because I took it as a photo first accidentally, and then we went into portrait, into the panorama mode. Colour reproduction is really nice on this one. I really like how the colour is on this one.
It's the only one that hasn't done anything to the middle bit.
That's also true, but that could be human error. That could be me just wobbling slightly in that middle section.
Yes.
But oddly, it's at the same place every time, which makes me think that maybe it isn't me. Unless I messed it up at exactly the same point every time.
But
the colours are better in this one.
Yes.
Best colours we've seen, but still a little bit dark.
Yes. But it's more natural looking than the other ones that are too bright.
Yeah, definitely. So finally we've got for the outdoor... Actually, no, these aren't finally. We've got quite a few more outdoor photos. Yeah, I'm really sorry, guys. This is going to be a really long video, but it's something that we want to discuss and look at, because each of these photos have some really nice characteristics. 10T lite. Straight away I knew it was a 10T lite, but I did want to check because we've got that cut in of the image there. You've got that letterboxing, but I just don't... I'm not a fan of the letterboxing that it does. You're losing a lot of the background. You're losing everything from sort of the left and the right side, aren't you?
Yeah.
But in terms of actual detail, it's captured a lot of detail. I really like how much detail it's captured.
I think the colours are quite good in this one though.
Surprisingly, yeah, it normally darkens it too much or lightens it too much, but this time it managed to get it just right.
Yeah.
Which proves to me that maybe sometimes the AI tries to kick in and do something with the photos that you don't expect it to. Next up we've got the Note 8T, the Redmi device.
This one's brightened the background up a bit.
Yes, so the grass background is a little bit too bright for me. It wasn't that bright in person. Still a good amount of detail though. This isn't the highest resolution camera, but you've still got a really nice amount of detail. And the blurring around it's nice as well. It's obviously picked out where I wanted the photo to be in focus and blurred everything else.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that one. I really like that.
I think this is the more natural looking one out of them all.
Yeah. It's also the cheapest. Funnily enough, this is the Redmi 9, the like £99 one instead of the 200 odd.
But this is the more natural, colour-wise looking one.
I was going to say, I think we've lost quite a lot of detail, but we really haven't.
No, not in this one.
Not in this one.
Maybe because it was closer up in comparison to all the others.
Potentially.
Because with all the others, you or I was standing further back
So
from the object.
I think what this proves to me is it's not all about the megapixels in a camera. In particular, a phone camera. So the higher megapixel cameras actually produced just as good of an image as this 13 megapixel here, especially in terms of its detail. There's certainly less detail around the edge here, and you can almost see where the AI has tried to blur the background, but it's not got it quite right, so it's blurred some of the main subject here, in particular along the sort of right leaf here. And finally, we've got the Pocco X3.
This one's brightened the grass up, but it's kind of darkened, only slightly, but darkened the leaves in places.
Visually very appealing.
Yes.
But not true to life.
No, because it has brightened it and darkened it in places.
Yeah. That's the most true to life colour-wise.
Yes.
This one has made it look the most appealing, which is nice to see.
Yes.
So this one, what I did was I went and put it in its highest resolution it can go. So this one's on the Pocco X3, which is that 64 megapixel mode. And we get a lot of detail. Colour is very true to life, but what I noticed for all 4 of these photos is they all have pretty much the same colour space. They all look very similar in terms of their colour. The main differences come in with the amount of detail that's in them.
There was one that the wall behind the background colour was slightly brighter though, wasn't there?
Okay, let's take a look then. So this one's the X3 Pocco X3. This one's the 10T Lite, and yeah, straight away, so this background is more orange than it was in real life for the X3. The 10T Lite, nice, I like it, very natural colour space, which is rare. From what we've seen of the 10T so far, it doesn't tend to do this very often. So it's nice to see that it's actually managed to get its colour space quite nice here. And again, detail is second to none. 64 megapixels does help with the amount of detail. The Note 8T looks pretty much the same actually. Maybe a little bit brighter.
A little
just
bit.
Ever so slightly. But it's nothing noticeable.
No. Not
And
unless
finally,
you're really looking.
No, exactly. And finally, the Redmi 9 again looks pretty much the same actually. Oh, hang on. So the 10T Lite, if you're taking a look at this sort of top right corner here, the concrete.
Yeah.
Those two are probably the most similar in terms of colour.
Yeah.
So I think what we can take away from it is the Redmi 9 seems, though the cheapest, seems the best with colour reproduction. Its colours have always been very consistent across the board.
Yeah.
Until we get to this last photo.
Yes.
So this one is using its 2x zoom, and this is straight away on the Redmi 9. We noticed when looking through these beforehand, both Redmi phones got the colours completely wrong.
Yes.
Like, completely. This almost looks white, the Command House sign, but it was
wasn't.
gold.
It was a golden yellow.
Yeah. In terms of detail, again, we've lost a lot of detail there, so it's tried to overly sharpen to compensate for that. So it's a very sharp image, but I expect that. And this red in particular in the corner, though the bricks were brighter in this part of the building, they were not that much brighter.
No, not that bright.
So this one's on the Pocco X3. This one I really like.
This one's more true to colour.
Yeah, got the colour space perfect. We've got a lot more detail in everywhere, Still, again, overly sharp, potentially.
Yes.
But it's certainly got colour space better, and it's got more detail than the Redmi 9. This one is the 10T Lite. You can tell because of the letterboxing. I'm going to keep coming back to it. I don't know how I feel about the letterboxing. I really don't. I get it from a looks standpoint.
With certain photos, depending on the subject, I think it's okay. But with others, I don't think it works.
No. This one is very film-esque. This looks like a film.
Yeah.
But
the colours are true.
Yeah, even with its... I don't know, I'd say the colours actually were a little bit darker than in real life.
I would say on the chimneys, yes, and with the trees, the bare trees, I would say yes. But otherwise, I would think the shade of reds are okay. Mm-hmm. And the sign, the command house sign, that looks fine. But I think it's the chimneys and the trees where it's darkened it.
Yeah. But certainly, this is the most appealing photo that I think we took today.
Yes.
Just everything about this photo I like, other than its slightly dark chimneys. And this one is the Redmi Note 8T. So again, we've lost all of that colour. Everything is blown out completely.
Yes, this one's a lot darker.
But in terms of sharpening of the actual image, we're not seeing it as much.
No.
Which is odd. So, of these ones, we're liking the 10T Lite the most, but that's because of its stylised imaging. If we're going true to life, then I have to say it'd be the Pocco.
Yes, definitely.
And finally, we are now in my living room. We are getting set for Christmas. Yes, it's a little bit early, but I needed something to cheer me up in the lockdown V2. So let's take a look at these images. This one is obviously the 10T Lite. As I zoom in, so I focused here mainly on the bauble. That's where I set my focus point. But it's actually lost quite a lot of the focal detail around the sort of the clip along the top of the bauble. But the main reason I wanted to look at this one was because of the lights. I wanted to see how it would deal with the lights in the background. I think it dealt with it very nicely. The tinsel seems very true. The colours seem pretty good here. Yeah. If a little bit dark again, it's gone down that more stylised route.
Yeah, but it's only kind of with the actual tree itself that it's darkened, not with the lights, the tinsel or the bauble. It's more with the tree that it's darkened.
So let's take a look at this one. This is the Pocco X3. We've lost quite a lot of the colour detail, but it's more true to life in terms of colour than this one. But in general, the image just looks less appealing. Everything is more blurred than I expected it to be.
Yes.
But it did manage to capture a nice amount of detail along the top here. So I think actually it chose its subject very well. It's really focused in on that bauble, whereas this one focused in on the bauble but also gave us detail of everything around it.
Yes.
The Redmi 9 looks actually very similar to the Pocco X3 in this case. The blurring is quite significant around the tinsel, but that bauble was nicely in focus, though I think there's a little bit more halo around the light sources than in other photos here.
Yes.
And the 8T, I don't like it. It's too bright. We almost, I mean, if we take a look at the 8T here with the bauble in particular, it hasn't even got that in focus.
No.
It's really struggled to capture any amount of detail in that bauble at all.
Or anywhere.
Or anywhere. Yeah, that image, maybe this was just how I took the photo, but for me, I don't like it. It's not a great photo. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take some photos this evening as well during the dark times, so we can get some night photos and some night shots, try out the night modes on each of these cameras, and then what we can do is we can evaluate those in the same way we have done these, and we can give you guys a decision of whether you like these photos and which ones that you think would be best for you. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so we're back after our lovely evening walk where we went out and took all of these phones with us, taking a look at some of the night mode shots that we can achieve with each of these phones. So we'll start off with the X3 here. This one is pretty nice to me. It does seem overly bright though. There is a little bit too much brightening going on. I don't know what you think.
In places on the left where like some of the street lights are, yes.
In particular, yeah.
Yes. But the Christmas lights, I don't think they are. I think it's just the street lights.
Though I have noticed along the top, the first set of Christmas lights, there's quite a lot of ghosting coming off of there. There's it's maybe not a perfect image, but it's certainly very good for the price point. So this one is the Note 8T. This one is a lot darker. Yes. There's a little less detail captured as well as we zoom in.
It's not ghosting as much at the top with some of the lights.
This is very true as well. So we've got a lot less ghosting and it looks a lot more natural in terms of its colour space.
Yeah.
But we have lost quite a lot of the detail there. This one was shot on the Redmi 9, which actually doesn't have a night mode per se. This is just its normal shooting mode, and I quite like it. It
looks a bit more blurry.
Yeah, in general, there's a lot less detail.
Yes.
But that's just because of its lower megapixel camera. But I think the colours are a lot better. The first two are very warm. There's a lot of orange going on in both of them. This one, it's more white lights, especially towards the end of the pathway.
Yes, but with the ones right at the top, you can really only see the blue and the green. You can't really see the others. They're really lighter in comparison.
And finally, the 10T Lite, of course, because we've got that letterboxing. Again, it's gone down. I can't tell whether it's the letterboxing that does it, but it looks very cinematic.
Yes.
Colours really nice. The colours are, again, probably a little bit too bright again.
In places, I think, yeah. And you've got the ghosting more.
Mm-hmm. And this one is certainly overly sharpened.
Yes.
Like, compare this one to something like the Redmi Note 8T, it's not as sharp on the 8T, and I think of these images, I prefer the 8T here.
Mm.
Do you agree with that, or is there one that you preferred more over?
I personally quite like the first one, if I'm being honest.
The X3. So I also really liked this one for its amount of detail, but I feel like it was just a little bit too bright. It's too saturated with its oranges over the whites.
But I prefer that one over the last one and...
Over the... Yes.
No, over the...
Redmi 9.
Redmi 9 and...
8T.
Yeah, those two. I preferred it over those two.
So again, I think we're probably chalking it up between the X3 and the 10T Lite. 10T Lite has got this nice cinematic look to it, but it's just a little bit too sharp.
It looks duller in places.
This is true, but I think that's also... It was quite a dull night. So is this more true to life than the original X3 photo? Yes,
but I think that one just looks more pleasing. This one looks more lifelike.
More real and gritty.
It looks duller.
Mm-hmm. So this one, we're taking a look at a night mode shot. In particular, I wanted to focus on the two light sources here, the yellow light and the blue light. So this first one is shot on the 10T Lite, I believe. Yep, so this first one's shot on the 10T Lite. I like it because it's not overly brightened the image. I can see each of those light sources individually. And there's still a certain amount of detail in the actual cathedral.
Yeah.
I believe that's a star.
But you can also see a star.
Yeah. So that's quite a nice image in general. It's not overly brightened, it's not overly sharpened. It's just a pleasing image in general. Then we've got the... which one's this one? Oh, that's two shots on the 10T Lite. So we'll move on to the X3. This one's the Pocco. I like this one because you can see the cloud.
Yes.
You can't see the cloud in this first one.
On the first one. You can still see the star on the first one, but you can't see the clouds on it.
And in general, we're capturing more of this image. We see more of the cathedral as a whole.
Yes, where on the other one you couldn't see it as much because it was a lot darker.
And because it had cut in with the edges. But I like the amount of detail that we've captured in this one with the cloud and actually being able to see the building. But the colours are potentially a little bit off. They're a little bit too bright, in particular on the cathedral.
Yes.
The Redmi 8T, very, very warm.
I don't know what's gone on there because there wasn't a red light.
It's just overly warm. All of the colours have been blown out completely.
Because the light on the right was nowhere near that colour.
No.
It was more like the first image.
It's almost again like the first two who have had a child and it's produced this image. We've got the detail of that second image with the cloud and the building, but we've got the slight over brightness of the 10T where the light sources are, in particular on this blue. That is a very, very blue. And finally, the Redmi 9. As noted, this doesn't have a night mode, so this one is pretty much unusable. I wouldn't even bother taking this one out for a night shoot because though we have 3 light sources,
it's very blurry.
It's completely blurred. Colours are wrong. No detail. I'm trying to find the redeeming quality within this image,
but there really isn't.
I mean, it's a satisfying blue colour. We'll give it that.
Yeah, you can't see the star unlike the other 3.
Exactly. Anyway, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to go down there, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification icon, and I will catch you in the next one. Adios.